Hi, Connor. Thank you. So if you haven't watched my videos before, usually I'll live stream for a couple hours each day. And this is still kind of in the rough sketch phase of the drawing. And by the end of it, it'll be a little bit more photorealistic, just little by little. Said you love to draw too. Right on. Said you love the drawing, you're not as good as me though. Well, it's all just how much time you put into it. Everyone starts somewhere. And so I always talk about, like, well, I say always, I usually talk about how it's more about the time you spend doing it. Most great artists spend pretty much all their time creating art. So some people are naturally inclined, but it's still a skill set that you can learn and practice. Since I already kind of broke the seal here, usually if I don't talk on these, I just continue to not talk. And I'll be honest, it's hit or miss whether or not people stick around, or, you know, if they're in here in higher numbers when I am talking. So I feel like there's not really much consistency to it. But if people have questions about art, I'm happy to answer them. Unlike most other people that are live streaming, I don't have a class to sell you. I'm not trying to hustle anything. I draw for a few hours every day, and when I'm not traveling, I live stream it. So that way people can watch what I would be doing in my downtime. Anyway, it also helps me to preserve and document the process of all the gallery pieces and things that I'm creating. The last series that I may still continue, but it's not really priority right now, was just sort of famous faces. It was mostly actors that I liked. Those are all archived in my live playlist. You can see all the different actors that I drew. It was everyone from like Brad Pitt to Joaquin Phoenix and Josh Brolin. Let's see, Dakota says, how long have I been doing this piece of art? It's amazing. Thank you. This I started yesterday, and I think I was drawing for about an hour and 20 minutes. And then I've been on for almost 12 minutes today. So that's pretty much what I've gotten done in that time. This phase of the drawing is more of a rough sketch right now. So there's not as much depth or detail as there will be. Guessing this one will probably take me another day or two. In the last series, something I didn't really like is the inconsistency in depth, which mainly is from using really different photos for the references. And so now that I'm live streaming again on a daily basis, I'm going to try and push for a little bit more consistency. see, so dang, that's so good. Okay, gotcha. This is Willie Nelson. It's I don't know how they pop up on live. I don't think that the title is up there when people are clicking on the live feed, but it's all in the description and everything. So is like all the stuff that I'm using, like the Blackwing pencils and this notebook and everything. That's all kind of listed there if people are interested in the tools that I use. Oh, right on. Thanks, Dakota. Yeah, with these pieces, I usually will take 3, sometimes 4 live sessions to finish a full portrait. And then I'll make a time lapse out of that so people can see start to finish in about 10 seconds. And then I archive all my live videos so people can see literally how I start and the sort of range of stages that you see as the drawings are being developed. So people can follow along and draw if they want, or if they just want something on in the background. And then this is all stuff I've said in a lot of my other lives, but it looks like there's mostly newer people commenting. I typically don't talk about art unless people ask questions. It's kind of like, I don't know, it starts to make me sleepy if I talk about the art the whole time. But happy to answer anything. And eventually these, the pieces that I'm making now, they'll go to galleries to be hung and sold, the originals, but if that happens, or when that happens, I'll get high-res scans and photos and have these available for posters or frameable art. If I tried to draw, I don't know what that is. Now, most of what I draw, especially in the last year, is portraits like this. If it's in pencil, it's usually somewhat photoreal. And then I also do pen and ink drawings. Most of those are portraits or architecture. But a lot of the people I draw are just people in general that I like, or, you know, I like their work, like Willie Nelson. I'm from Texas, and he's kind of a staple around the Austin area. And just in general, long time fan of his music. Oh, it's a rapper. Yeah, to be honest, I'm like I'm not very well versed in rap. That's more of my brother's department. He kind of knows all things rap. I like rap, but it's not my go-to. I'm also old, so like when I say I like rap, I like Wu-Tang and Nas and stuff like that. He said, okay, Post Malone or Jelly Roll. Yeah, maybe at some point. I do have a lot of tattoos and beard, so I've had quite a few kids where I live ask if I'm Post Malone despite not having face tattoos. Almost went as him for Halloween. How long have I been drawing? So I've drawn, you know, my whole life in terms of like doodling and little creative stuff. My career previous to doing art and photography was in music. And so I would always draw little things for projects that I worked on. But this type of drawing I've been really focused on for the last 3 or 4 years, ranging from pencil portraits, pen portraits, architectural study, to be able to sit and draw like in person. But when I say the last 3 or 4 years, that's, you know, sometimes I'll draw for 6 hours in a day, depending on the day. I mean, I've done sort of longer ones, but that's kind of the average. If I am going to draw for long sessions, it's usually that much. It's also one of the things I like, even when the live streams are not heavily populated. I do like the documentation of these series because I can go back and look at the exact amount of hours that I spent working on it. And it translates to the quality of the work, I think, as well. The last, I think it's the last short that I uploaded, is 65 hours of drawing in 20 seconds. And it's the entire last series that I did of famous faces. I think that's 9 different portraits. So when you know, some were a little faster than others, depending on the photo reference. And honestly, some were probably faster because I wasn't talking. But a lot of the time on these streams, if I don't talk, I'll fall asleep, which I have done. If you go back and watch my panda drawing, I fell asleep at some point during that live. But to really, I guess, to answer your question in detail, drawing in this style for the last 3 years, 4 years, I guess. At the time when I started really pursuing art full-time, or attempting to do it full-time, I was working at a store that sold art supplies and travel supplies. And they actually sell these, what I'm drawing in right now. And so there's a little bit of a drive there because I carried my sort of daily carry drawing book there because it was one of the things we sold. And so anytime I'd have downtime, I would sit and draw at work as well, which I got in trouble for a few times. But ultimately seems like it was worth it. But it's more of an obsession, so it's so you said you were scrolling through lives and found my channel. So this is amazing piece. Oh, right on. I appreciate that. Yeah, if you want to check out some of the other ones, I'd say like the one that I'm most proud of from the last series is Joaquin Phoenix, or I don't know, I like that one a lot. The Tom Hardy drawing I did is probably the most accurate. But you can see sort of the range of how much these change as I add more details and depth. And right now I'm mainly just focusing on kind of creating an even base to start going in and adding details and texture, just sort of getting wherever the light's reacting from the reference photo. And so I haven't been live streaming daily. I started back up yesterday. I took about a month and a half off. We were doing a bit of traveling, which I'm about to do in a couple weeks as well. But typically, if I'm not traveling for work or family stuff, I live stream every day. And they're always archived, so people can go back and watch. Have I done Laney? I don't think I know who that is either. In terms of drawing women, I've not drawn a lot of women. I've explained it a little bit in some other videos, but the short answer on that is honestly, it's kind of lazy. A lot of the guys that I've drawn have facial hair, or like 2 of them in the last series had cigars, and it kind of gives you, like, for lack of a better term, geology on their face to map things out, so you can get a little bit easier of a drawing session without using a ruler the entire time. Lainey Wilson. Okay, I think I know who that is. I'll check her out and see. But yeah, I will be doing some country and sort of folk people for the next unforeseeable amount of time until I decide this series is done. At some point I'll put a thing up for people to vote on who to draw. But I've said it before in some of my other lives, I typically usually lean more towards stuff that I'm interested in drawing. Not to say that people don't recommend stuff like that, so usually they will overlap at some point, but I find that it's got to be something I'm interested in. And in terms of like getting art into galleries, there has to be sort of an overarching theme, or just even like creative spaces that are selling art that aren't considered galleries necessarily. See, you said you draw stuff like skulls of roses and stuff like that. Okay, that's cool. It's like traditional, like, I would guess sort of tattoo style, traditional. I've drawn, actually I drew a flower earlier today for my wife, so I definitely draw stuff like that, but more casually. I've done some skull drawings for light studies, sort of trying to get shapes and objects to come off the page a little bit. And that was mainly when I was drawing exclusively in ink. But yeah, they make for good drawing subjects just from all the different contours. You said you want to be a tattoo artist? Yeah. I think it's a good career if you can stick with it. It's definitely crossed my mind quite a few times to do it. Actually have all the equipment to do it. I've sort of like dabbled in that world a little bit. Years and years ago, I made a documentary for a tattoo artist, and we had kind of a trade system, and he did a bunch of my tattoos for free. And after, I mean, filming with him for over a year, it was like having a sort of master class in painting style tattoos. And that guy, he's an odd dude, but really talented. His name is Dan Henk, Henk. He does mostly like horror style tattoos, but worth checking out if you're interested in that. But yeah, the tattoo scene, depending on where you are, is super, super different from city to city. I got most of my tattoos when I was either traveling with bands for a living or when I was in Austin. And they certainly range in quality and style, but I'm not really the type to cover anything up or get anything removed, so I'm just going to ride it out. Hopefully, I don't think it's going to happen before the end of this year, just from travel and timing, but I'm going to try to get the top of my right hand done. Got a couple people that I'd be interested in working with. Can I give moderator? I don't know what that is. If it has to do with the live stream, probably not. Typically, once I start clicking around on my phone, my will to draw kind of dissipates. No offense or anything. It's a relatively quiet night around our building, which is sort of shocking. It always happens that way once I start talking, and suddenly our neighbors are quiet. On the days where I want to draw silently, there's an astonishing amount of noise. It's just the way it goes living in a dense city. Oh yeah, I don't know what the moderator stuff is. I would assume, are you asking if you can be a moderator on like the live stream? Oh, gotcha, yeah. To be honest, I never even set those, even when I have people I know in the chat. I just kind of let it roll. No offense. Yeah, a lot of why I quit live streaming while I was traveling, aside from just technical issues, was like quite a few trolls in the last live stream. That's, I think, one of the few videos that's not archived. But the time lapse is up so people could see the entire Daniel Day-Lewis art. I had a moderator in that one, and I don't know, they didn't seem to help even when they were actively blocking people. Have I ever done Duck Dynasty? No, I have not. But my mother-in-law likes that show. And most of the people that I draw are actors, filmmakers, writers, musicians. Aside from just all the personal drawings that I do, like when I travel, usually if I meet people that I get along with, I'll draw a portrait for them. So that's for the last month or so. That's all I've been doing, is just drawing portraits for people that I meet while I travel. But typically I draw stuff that's kind of in like my realm of interest. It's like Willie Nelson sort of goes without much explanation, but he's like, I mean, I guess he's not technically a Texan. I'm not sure if he's actually from Texas, but he's been there long enough to be a Texan. Sort of royalty there, which is where I'm from originally. Oh, it's not bothering me at all to have questions. If I don't answer for a little bit, it's usually just because I'm trying not to mess up on the drawing, but I don't ever mind people asking questions as long as they're being cool. And I also don't mind when people suggest who to draw. It always has to overlap with stuff I'm into, so I don't get bored while I'm drawing. or unless it's, you know, a commission, and then I'll draw whatever people want for the right amount of dough. That was also in regards to the moderator stuff. The last time when I tried to have a moderator, I spent half of the time talking to them off camera on my iPad. So it just kind of like made it where I was actually concentrating less, which, you know, the art suffers and then it's less interesting to watch. Have I ever tried to draw my mom or family, like gifts for family members? Not my mom. I've drawn, I'm trying to think. I have drawn family members. I did a drawing of my wife's grandfather, which I need to actually get prints of for all of her family. Currently working on gifts for a bunch of our friends from the last trip that we were on, and so I have kind of a stack of preliminary sketches of sort of friends and family, but those I tend to do in a smaller size. Here, I'll take a break and show you some. So this is what I travel with. It's a smaller version of what I'm currently drawing in. So these are all, so let me move this out of the way. These are all what are called preliminary sketches. It's when I do the majority of the outlining and then I go back and like more shading and depth. That's some people that we met while traveling. This is one of our good friends. It's another good friend. These people are all kind of like family. These two we just met randomly and they were very sweet. I offered to draw them. I have a lot of stuff like that. I tend to not do too much in terms of drawing family. It's usually like close friends, which might also speak to who I like spend time with the most, but I'll draw some family. And then like that's a rough sketch for one of the people that I was drawing. He's really fascinated with early stages of the Empire State Building, just because he's like a metal worker, and so this is, I'd say from like 100% scale, this is at about 5% done. But I'll send that off to him in Italy when I finish those. And then I guess just since I have it out, I can show some of the other drawings in this. But there's Harry Dean Stanton from Paris, Texas. It's Peter McKinnon. Cedar Farrell. Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd. It's Ari Matty. Scroobius Pip, actually, that's another rapper. It's British though. Michael Fassbender. Gary Oldman. Brad Pitt. It's Jack Kerouac. Dean Cassidy. There's Ferlinghetti, which if you don't know who these people are, a lot of them are famous writers or actors. He's a really famous writer from here in San Francisco. It's Ansel Adams, one of the best photographers to have ever lived. It's James Baldwin, another writer. There's a rapper, Kendrick Lamar. It's a very loose Bourdain. It's John Barenthal, which I've drawn him a couple times. That's Bob Dylan. This is actually based on a Jim Marshall photo where most of his face is in the dark, so I had to kind of lighten it. And then that's Jim Marshall who took that the one that took the photo that last drawing is based on. He's another San Francisco legend. He's taken a lot of photos that most people aren't aware that he did. Like, he's famous for like Hendrix photos and Rolling Stones and Grateful Dead. A lot of like legendary bands, especially if they came through San Francisco, he's who took their photo. It's Joaquin Phoenix and Inherent Vice. That's Jeremy Allen White from The Bear. It's Bill Murray. Some of these are like abandoned drawings. Eventually I'll go back and finish them. These two were kind of like a rough mark in this book. That's Sinatra. That's Val Kilmer from Tombstone. This is actually, typically when I draw in a book this small, I use these Pentel graph gears. But this one was actually done with a Blackwing pencil, so it's a little bit rougher because it's a larger graphite. That's a Big Lebowski. That's my wife's grandfather. This one's kind of a funny one because I was going to draw right-handed in all these, meaning my reference photo has to be over here. So I was just going to turn it upside down and draw on the backs of all these, but now I'm cutting most of these out for galleries. But that's Bukowski. It's another rough, larger pencil drawing. It's James Dean. It's Johnny Depp. So it's Nick Frost, How He Looks Now. Simon Pegg. These are both 5-minute sketches. I think so is the James Dean. This one's like a 10-minute sketch. Let's see. This is, if anyone is a fan of Doctor Who, that's the first Doctor. Or no, that's the second Doctor. So Christopher Hitchens. And then there's, I believe that's Sitting Bull. And then there's a bunch more in here. But yeah, typically when I draw while I'm traveling, that's the book that I use. Same as what I'm drawing in now. It's a leather-bound book that has art inserts. Okay, back to Willie Nelson for a little bit. So they look realistic. Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of the goal of most of these, is to just kind of slowly push them towards photorealism. This one will be a little bit of a challenge because most of his facial hair is white, so I'm going to go in and have to do sort of negative swipes with a sharpened eraser. And then for whoever was asking if this is someone, I'm not sure. It's Willie Nelson. It's in the title of the video. So just oh, cool. Yeah, it's a geometric drawing, I'm guessing. And most of the drawings that I do are based on a photo reference, especially if it's for a portrait. So I don't really do any religious drawings or anything like that, just simply because I'd have to find some other art representation to use, which feels a little bit like, I don't know, cheating or something. Is this like my job? Drawing, you mean? Oh, if that's what you're asking, if art is my job, then technically yes. I do art by commission. And then these are all basically up for sale, either in like creative spaces where people sell art, like local restaurants, cafes, or bars, or galleries. But I do a few things. It's all creative work. I also do photography, and then I mentioned earlier I used to play music for a living. Um, so it's kind of all like the holdovers of what that career left, is like making music videos and animation. Which, if you go back far enough on my YouTube channel, there's a bunch of that stuff. It's like a lot of weird animation and kind of band related things. But right now, art is basically my sole pursuit creatively. Tried to kind of get away from doing music videos and things along those lines. I'd rather have something I can carry with me from place to place. So, like, this is probably, for a while now, this is the biggest art size that I'll do, which is an A4. Just to give kind of a frame of reference, this is a 6-inch ruler. So you can kind of see like the scale of how like the size of this. But even this I can throw in a bag and take on a trip. Whereas like when I was doing photography and video work for a living and music, there was so much gear involved. I got really obsessed with not ever having to carry a ton of stuff anymore. What is one of the most valuable they got from they all range, so it just depends if it's a commission or if it's like a gallery piece. I mean, honestly, depending on what the art is, it's hard to give like a straight answer because that's also sometimes determined by the gallery itself. But for commissions, mainly my commissions that I've done are all smaller. And so those, you know, for something that's the size of what I was showing you earlier, that's like in a book like this size, those range from, you know, 250 to 1,000 for like a 4x6 at max size. You know, if it's multiple people in it, then it's always a higher price. But for galleries, it can range. Really, it just depends on what the series is, because a lot of that, like, I've talked about it a lot in other lives, but I'm not a huge fan of the gallery world. I feel like there's kind of a disparity in value versus skill. But yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, like some pieces, like something this size, like in hyper detail, I wouldn't sell for less than, you know, a couple thousand. So like the originals of like the Tom Hardy and the Joaquin Phoenix drawings, all the ones that are in my live archive and my shorts, the ones that are a little bit more hyper detailed, those would be probably, I think, like lowest they'd ever get priced would be like 2,500. And that's for the original, you know, like printable art, you know, the reprinted stuff is significantly cheaper. Nice. Thanks for watching. It should be live most days. So at least for the next 2 weeks, I'll be live on a daily basis. So you'll see me pop up. Cool. Thanks for dropping in. And for anyone who's watching to learn about this, whether they're on right now or watching later in the archive, right now I'm adding directional texture. Sort of gives a little bit more depth and shape to the face, but especially in an older face like this, there's going to be a lot of directional lines. And sometimes it's easier to add that texture before you start lining it. Probably going to hop off after an hour tonight, so about 8.5 more minutes of drawing. I am going to shift up what time I'm doing live streams, so I'm going to try to aim for earlier in the day. I'm on the West Coast, so I typically have started at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I'm probably going to shift that to a midday thing. See if there's more art fans at that time of day. So I will be back on tomorrow. Most likely early. If not early, then I'll be back on at 5. For anyone wondering about art techniques, for skin texture, especially on this grit of paper, this is a 150 GM paper. Small circular patterns are what I prefer. I rarely crosshatch in pencil drawings in general. So even if it looks like I'm doing a straight back and forth thing, it's actually oblong circles or ovals. Kind of in line with what I was talking about with adding directional texture to give your drawing more depth and realism. It also allows for you to add quite a few more layers of depth. And like I said a couple minutes ago, I'm going to end around 6 o'clock today. 6 my time, Pacific Standard. I'll be back on tomorrow, most likely earlier in the day. If not, then I'll be back on at 5 p.m. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call it there for the night. I will be back on tomorrow. If not around 10 a.m., then I'll be on at 5 p.m. Should be back on daily for the next 2 weeks or so. So if you want to see long form drawing, that'll be a daily thing. Usually these pieces take anywhere from 3 to 4 live sessions to finish. And then I distill the whole process down into a 10-second time lapse so you can see it start to finish pretty quickly. Yeah, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.